Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium in St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, Crossing New Frontiers to Conquer Today's Challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, St. Augustine.
I'm Philip Emeagwali. My scientific story is more fragmented than the story of the theoretical physicist Albert Einstein. It was the story of my journey from the frontier of extreme-scale computational physics. That journey to discover how to solve the toughest problems in mathematical physics was interrupted during the last 30 months of the 1960s. That journey was interrupted when I fled from my all-boys Catholic boarding school named St. George's Grammar School, Obinomba, Nigeria. I fled from St. George's Grammar School in late April 1967, and I fled because the Nigerian Civil War was in the air. I fled to become a 12-year-old refugee in the breakaway and short-lived nation of Biafra. 2 months after I fled from Obinomba, Nigeria, to Agbor, Nigeria, to Onitsha, Biafra, and on the 6th of July of 1967, that Nigeria-Biafra War began. On the 4th of October of 1967, my ancestral hometown of Onitsha, Biafra, was heavily bombarded for 24 hours and bombarded from Asaba, Nigeria, and bombarded from across the River Niger. The following day, that artillery bombardment of Onitsha, Biafra by the Nigerian army was followed by the invasion of my hometown. That night, Onitsha was invaded by a 10-boat armada that carried 5,000 Nigerian soldiers. Those Nigerian soldiers were led by Moitola Mohammed, who would later become the president of Nigeria. 1 in 15 Biafrans died when that Nigerian Civil War ended. That Nigerian Civil War was a nightmare and a bloodbath. The Nigerian Civil War ended after 30 months of non-stop fighting, and on January 15, 1970, 1 million soldiers died at the war fronts of the Nigerian Civil War, and about 500,000 women and children died in Biafran refugee camps. I survived 2 years in Biafran refugee camps and survived 6 months of bloodbath near the Oguta war front. I survived a war that was described as Africa's bloodiest war. Biafra was located in the southeastern region of Nigeria, West Africa. My family of 7 children lived in 6 refugee camps within Biafra. For 2 years and 3 months, onward of April 1967, my family lived in refugee camps in the Biafran cities of Onitsha, Ogidi, Oba, Oka, Oketiti, and Ndone. Russian Ilyushin bombers and MiG fighters were bombing and strafing our neighborhoods of around 14 Mba Road, Onitsha, Biafra. On my 14th birthday of August 23, 1968, my postal address was Chukwura Philip Emeagwali, St. Joseph's Refugee Camp, Oketiti, Biafra, West Africa. On the cover of the Time magazine that was dated August 23, 1968, is an artist's portrait of Colonel Ojukwu, the leader of Biafra. The cover story of that issue of Time magazine was titled Biafra's Agony. For us, the agony was real. Half of the refugees at our St. Joseph's Refugee Camp, Oketiti, Biafra, were living skeletons. My father, Nnameka James Emeagwali, was the live-in refugee camp nurse at St. Joseph's Refugee Camp. In August 1968, my father told me that half of the children in our refugee camp, including my 2-year-old brother, Peter, had kwashiorkor, a rare malnutrition disease caused by lack of protein. At St. Joseph's Refugee Camp of Oketiti, Biafra, children and grandparents that did not survive kwashiorkor were buried without funerals and buried at our backyard. In Biafra, meat, pepper, and even salt were almost as scarce as gold. 3 charity organizations, the Red Cross, the Roman Catholic Relief Organization named Caritas, and the World Council of Churches, provided to our refugee camp corn meal, Norwegian dried stock fish named oporoko, and powdered milk. The relief foods were secretly flown into Yuli airstrip of Biafra. That 27-month refugee experience was the reason the United Nations has the portrait of Philip Emeagwali along with the portraits of the likes of Albert Einstein in its gallery of refugees who made a difference.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.